Welcome back to the latest episode of BWD In the Know, the human side of wealth management. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Louisa. Louisa is an investment manager. So, Louisa, how are you today? Thanks so much for coming down.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be on the podcast. I think it's such a great thing to do to get more women and people interested in wealth management. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, would you mind literally running all the way back and starting from the beginning? How did you get into the industry? Where did it all start? Talk me through all of that kind of journey.
So I think I had a little bit of a less orthodox route
Mm?
into the industry, definitely compared to my peers. So I started working when I was 18. So I was really quite young, and looking back now, I was really young. I didn't feel it though. I kind of went in thinking that I had it. But I did an internship with a big UK wealth manager straight out of college. And even it was my first everything. It was my first big interviews. It was a really rigorous interview process.
Mm.
Had to do all the group tasks and all of that. So
Assessment centres,
yeah,
yeah.
which was horrible. But I think I've kind of got this thing where I don't think about things very much when I go into it. So I went through it all not really knowing what to expect. Did that. It was a summer internship, and I loved it. So it was a lot of you see the interns in the office kind of going around in their groups and kind of saying hello to all the different desks and whatnot, and it was a lot of that. But I just really liked being in that office environment, and I don't think at that point I really cared what I was going to be doing in the office. I just liked being in the office.
So it wasn't at that point like wealth management, investment management as such. It was more just a case of you liked being in that corporate environment, but it
Yeah.
wasn't that you'd specifically tried to get into the wealth management
When
space.
you're so young, I think you're quite conscious to you don't want to just pigeonhole yourself into a career, and you kind of think, oh, I'll try this, I'll do
Yeah.
that, whatever, which I think is probably the best way to do
Yeah.
it. But I was always interested in money,
Yeah.
which kind of makes me sound quite shallow, but I found it so interesting, kind of how people made their money, what they did with it, why some people had these opportunities, why some people didn't, and the kind of, again, the human element of
Yeah.
money. So that's what kind of led me to wealth management. And I read a lot of like personal finance books. There was one which is quite cliche looking back, but it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you've read it.
I don't think I have, no.
But that book was quite influential in my kind of early stage career decisions. So I read that book, found this company, went for the internship, got it, and it was a summer internship. And then afterwards, they offered me a job in a company that was kind of attached to the
Yeah.
big operation. And I started as a unit trust dealer, which was
Ah.
quite rogue because I didn't know much at that point at all. So I walked into the office and I had to learn everything from kind of the ground up, all of the financial jargon, all of that. And it was basically my job to place the trades at market when they came in, just for the unit trust funds. So all of the different investment managers in the firm would place their client orders, and then it was me that kind of keyed them in. So that was my first role in the industry.
Wow. Was there many other people like your age
No,
there?
I was the youngest. I joined with like a cohort of graduates. They
Okay,
weren't
yeah.
on a scheme or anything,
Yeah.
but it was like there was a group of us who had like they had just graduated from university, and I kind of managed to slip in
Yeah.
and go under the radar that I wasn't at the same stage as them. So that was kind of when the fake it till you make it started.
Do you think because you went in a lot younger than other people, you had to kind of like mature
Yeah,
quite quickly?
yeah,
Because I guess a lot of people, when they go to university at 18 and then they come out at 21,
yeah.
they're completely different people because they've
Yeah.
been forced to kind of fend for themselves and mature. I guess you had to do that, but in a slightly different way.
There was definitely a learning curve of just even the office politics side of things.
Yeah.
You don't really realise what it's like until you start working in an office. And I know everybody in an office probably had to go through this at some point. Even, you can't gossip in the office. That was like rule number one. But things like that I learned, very quickly just from doing. And that's kind of been the way my career has played out, where it has been learning through doing and doing exams. And I started the professional qualifications as soon as possible. I
Yeah.
think I was a bit like a bloodhound, that this is what I wanted to do, and I had to kind of put pressure on.
Yeah.
And then once I started getting those exams, the confidence built through that.
Yeah.
Just from like getting my technical knowledge up and up as I did each one. But also like the interest and the love for what I do developed
Yeah.
through learning.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that was my early stage career. And then I was in portfolio management. I was a junior on the portfolio management team in the same company. I ended up being there for 4 years.
Mhm.
And then I had 3 different roles throughout my time there.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I was always missing at that first company is the client. I was never in a client facing role, and that was what my love was, and it still is now. I love talking to people. So then I made a move to the company I'm at now when I wanted to move into a client facing role.
Mhm. And is that when you moved down to London?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was always in the Bristol office because that's where
Yeah.
I grew up, and I was, living at home still for those 4 years. And then I moved to London when I was 22.
And how long have you now been qualified for?
I got chartered in August last year, which is almost a
Nice.
year now, which
Wow.
has gone really quick. So
Flown
it still
by.
feels like I've only just got that, but yeah.
And have you come across many other people who've come into the industry in like the same or similar way to you, like whether it's been an internship or like an apprenticeship, or has most people come via like the university route or like
I think wealth management in particular does value a good university on your
yeah,
CV. I think that's the traditional route, absolutely, from what I come across. There is great apprenticeship schemes and they're coming up, and I love
yeah,
seeing that, and I love talking to the apprentices at work now, because they're young and they're as young as I was, and it's not very often that you get the opportunity to work in an office when you're really young, but they do.
in the big city as
And
well.
they've always got so much. Yeah, it's so different being in London to in Bristol, I'm sure, but they've always got so much kind of drive when they're
Yeah.
like that. But it's because they've got all this, like, I don't know, hope behind them, I guess. They've got
hmm
big ideas, which I love. But no, I don't actually know anybody in my kind of peer group now at work who didn't go to university. I'm just thinking, is there anybody? But no, everybody went to university.
And do you think maybe the route that you've taken, like I say, it wasn't the traditional route, and obviously going from like more of the technical investment portfolio management side to where you are now, I guess that's maybe also giving you a bit of a different perspective as well.
Yeah. I always think it's good to start kind of from the bottom up. I would say that for everybody. I know that there's like a thing now that graduates want to graduate and start a job at a certain level and
Yeah.
stuff. But I think when you start at, ground zero, you get the opportunity to really understand how a business works, and all of the the admin that people don't want to do is actually so valuable to understanding the whole process. And for me, I know that it's like easy to split the wealth management industry into 2 categories. You get the technical side, which is people who are really analytical.
Yeah.
They love Excel spreadsheets and kind of drilling down into the investments within the portfolio and how they work. Or you get the relationship side, and it's people who like talking to people. And I think experiencing both sides, although I only did the that portfolio management side for like the very early stages of my career. I think it's good to kind of have the knowledge of both sides, and that's how you
Yeah.
ultimately become the best of either.
hmm
So yeah, it's a great. I think that it was invaluable experience for me.
And I guess it probably helps with client conversations now that
Yeah,
you've got such a strong technical background as well.
yeah. I think sometimes the industry is too segmented in that way, whereas I think having abilities from both
Yeah.
pots and be able to pull, obviously you need the technical knowledge, especially if you've got a really technical client,
Yeah.
which happens all the time. It's really great to build that rapport and build that trust when you can have that kind of
hmm
more in-depth conversation.
hmm
So it'd be a shame if you just purely liked chatting to people. You can't just
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. Like you say, your preference is the client facing side, you're a
Yeah,
people person.
yeah.
What is it about the client facing side of the role that you enjoy?
I think for a lot of people, money is never just money. It's actually their family, their futures, their freedom. There's lots of things that come into this pot of money. And I think it's really easy for people to kind of get desensitized from that. Whereas making decisions about people's money is making decisions about their family and all of that
hmm
stuff. And that's the key that element to me. So actually having empathy to people's situations and understanding their wants, needs, desires, and how they want their life to play out is such a key thing in doing what we do.
hmm
So the human element is basically the core of everything and every
Yeah.
decision you make to me.
Do you find that kind of relationship side, human, like relationship building quite fulfilling then.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is, well, it's definitely my favorite part of the job. But
Hmm.
like, it always was what interested me in the industry.
Hmm.
Just even how people made their money, why they do what they do, what do they want to do in the future, how do they see their children's lives in terms of this money being passed down and things like that. I like to get involved in all of that and have those conversations. Yeah,
Absolutely,
makes
like you
it real.
say. Yeah, and I guess it's all about, like, this podcast is all linked to the human side
Hmm.
of wealth management,
Yeah,
and ultimately that is a lot of, advisors and investment managers' favorite part of the role. And
yeah,
I find it quite fascinating as well, because I think sometimes, it can just seem like a profession, but
yeah,
money's so emotional,
yeah,
and it's such an emotional kind of job as
yeah,
well. So I think, yeah, you have to be a people person
yeah.
to want to be able
And
to
there's
do the job.
so many behavioral biases that we don't realize that we have that come into play when we make investment
Mm.
decisions.
Talk to me
Um,
about that.
so, even things like there's like gambler's fallacy where they think they have a hunch for something and they really think it's going to play out, and then it's really hard to let go of that
Yeah.
hunch. You need somebody to talk that through, but also be empathetic to understanding that is actually how they feel.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, oh, you're being silly, like sell it, get rid of it. You have to hear it out and say why and do the analysis and hold their hand. And a lot of it is hand holding, in order to make the best decision for the client. And that's always, everything is always about the best decision for the client. But there's so many things that can, get in the way of that. And it's just about talking and understanding where people actually are. Yeah, so there's herd mentality. So
Yeah.
you see everybody else doing something and you get FOMO and you think, if
Yeah.
I don't do that, I'm going to be the only one who doesn't become a millionaire. There's things like that. And you have to say no, because that might be right for that person because their lives are going in this direction and they've got this thing, but you've got all of these things going on. So that isn't right for you right now. It doesn't mean it's bad investment. It just means that isn't right for you. And that's a
Hmm.
conversation that you need to have.
Hmm.
So it's all about communication and making sure people feel heard
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
not like feeling silly for these things because they're so normal. We all have them.
Hmm. You've talked a little bit about it there, actually, but where would you say the human side shows up the most in your role?
I my role, the human side is everything to me, and I know it's not, maybe not how everybody sees. Some people see that the portfolio comes first and everything, but I just think you could have two clients with identical portfolios, but they both see them very differently, and it's
Hmm.
about knowing your client and the emotions they have behind it. So I don't think you can do the job without understanding that.
Hmm. Hmm. And again, this comes up so much. You're probably sick of hearing about AI and robo-advice, but
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about it because it is becoming
It's
bigger and
interesting,
bigger.
yeah.
It's taking over not just the industry, but like the
Yeah, yeah,
world.
yeah.
What do you think, like, it is that, again, there's many different answers to this, so it's no right answer,
Yeah.
but what do you think it is that differentiates, you as an investment manager to what a lot of these, robo-advice and AI,
This is funny. I actually met a woman not that long ago who has started a financial advice company which
yeah.
is all powered through AI. So I kind of joked like, "Oh, you're trying to take my job."
Mm.
But I think the AI and robo advice is really great for the education piece. I think
Yeah,
we
making it
as
more accessible.
yeah, making it more accessible,
Yeah.
exactly, and it's so important. So if you start your investing career through that, you've started it. It's brilliant, but it always gets to a point where AI cannot understand every aspect of
Mm.
you, your life, how you think, and all of that. You need somebody to actually build that rapport with you, and it's the relationship that is important. It's also, the scale of investing maybe feels easy if you've got £100 and you're thinking, oh, where should I, you can do it all through robo advice and they can invest your £100, but when you've got £100,000, it's nice to have somebody to
Hmm.
talk to. And I
Yeah.
really think that that's what it comes down to, that it's people want human interaction,
Hmm.
and I do believe that.
It's that hand holding as well, like you said
Yeah,
before. People
yeah.
want that, that emotional and that kind of guidance as well.
And sometimes it is emotional, and that's okay, because you can have this advice that ChatGPT or whoever gives you, and it is fine advice for an investor, but it might not be the right advice for you.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that
It's not personal.
yeah, Yeah, and I know you can make it personal, and me and my ChatGPT get on very well. I feel like we have a quite a close bond, but sometimes it's just about having that conversation and hearing it out. And it might be that it is the right advice for you, but it's when it's your money and it's your family and it's all of those things. I think having a person who has done all these qualifications, it's kind of invaluable just to bounce off of it. But I'm really interested in that side of the industry, and I'm really excited to see where it goes purely for the accessibility thing, because it's a massive thing that we need more people understanding finances.
And I imagine it helps you in your day-to-day role anyway with things like admin and client
Yeah.
meetings and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a productivity tool at the end of the day, and if we can all be doing things more efficiently, faster, and getting more of the kind of boring, monotonous tasks done, so then we can focus on the key parts of the job more, then it's a win-win. So yeah, it's exciting.
Something I want to talk about is regarding women and money and financial confidence, because you do a lot with female clients and it's something that you're quite passionate about.
Definitely.
So I guess to kickstart that, a lot of kind of conversations can be around confidence and why confidence with, wealthing and investing can feel a little bit, conversations around that can feel a little bit intimidating for women. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I get asked this question a lot, why I think that women don't invest, because it's statistical, right? So there's so many less women in the UK investing than there are men. And why is that? I think it's not a one simple answer. I think there's so many things, and I think it can be down to the individuals rather than putting that stereotype on, oh, women don't think this, women don't think that. But there's something going wrong somewhere in how women are kind of feeling towards money. And I think, I mean, I ask myself this a lot. Why is that? I think women don't have the conversations in the same way that men do. I think girls at school don't have the conversations in the same way boys at school do about money and finances. I think there's kind of that kind of bro culture where men find it as, an easy topic of conversation, whereas women just don't bring it up. I think there's so many factors like the gender pay gap, the pension gap, obviously the investment gap is what we're talking about, but all of these things play into that. And in this kind of day and age, we can't actually afford to let it go on. We need women to talk about money in a way that they feel confident. Women are quite often the decision makers in the household, whether that's the decisions about how the family's being run, day to day, that kind of thing, but also the financial money making decisions. And often they're becoming the breadwinner. So it's just such a, it's not a nice to have. We need, it'd be nice to have more women talking about money. We need it to go forward. Society's changed and we need to kind of bring that forward.
Do you think a lot of this comes down to like historically and generally speaking, it was like the man that was, managing all the finances, and it was generally speaking again that the man was the breadwinner.
Yeah.
So
I mean, women couldn't even get a credit card until
they couldn't get a bank account until
the 70s.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out the actual year in the stat, and I'll include it below. But it's like you say, that traditional way of living where the woman stays at home and the man goes out and works. So do you think that's what it is? Is like, it's not, I know it's changing and there's more and more women who are becoming the breadwinners and are working within wealth management. So things are obviously changing, but still, generally speaking, it seems to be a little bit more of an awkward and, a conversation that women don't feel confident in.
I think so.
That's something you're quite passionate about, trying to change. And
I think, and I know I was listening to a podcast on this topic the other day, and she, it was Abigail Foster, who's really great.
Yeah.
She even brought up the masculinity in the jargon that we use in finance. So like the bull markets, the bear markets. You have films like Wolf of Wall Street when it's all of that, like from the 80s. Finance, you didn't get any women on the trading floor, and if you did, they had an awful time. So I think that's just a massive part of it. But it's such an interesting thing, and I've had this conversation a lot, where people have said, why don't we, like, to their friends, why don't we talk about money? And then they started talking about money, and it's just, it hasn't been the norm.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot more as well, like social media and things like that, and podcasts. are helping with,
Yeah.
you know, helping making more people and women feel more financially literate and having conversations and
Yeah.
talking about investing, even things like, you know, TikTok and
Yeah.
Instagram. There's some really good,
The rise of the finfluencer.
genuinely,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's some, again, some really great podcasts who will get some really good guests on, and
Mhm.
hopefully I'm kind of contributing to that a little bit because it's something I feel quite passionate about.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's again one of the reasons I was really keen to chat to you, because it's something that, you know, it's a big part of your role and probably drives your day to day, because
Yeah.
you want to improve, you know, the financial
Yeah.
confidence of women. And again, one thing that we spoke about, and you feel it's very important to have both partners and,
Mhm.
you know, women involved from
Absolutely.
day one in
Yeah.
those conversations. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think it's so easy when you have a male fem female couple dynamic
Yeah.
that the woman can traditionally, especially some of our older clients, can take a seat back,
Yeah.
and sometimes they don't come to the meetings,
Mm.
and we just get the husband. Um, and sometimes they will come and they'll just kind of sit there, and I've had women, you know, their husbands have left the room, and then they've said to me, "Can you just actually explain it to me? I didn't catch any of it."
Mm.
And it's interesting how that dynamic, and it is normally our older clients.
Mhm.
And it doesn't happen so much, which is nice when I see younger couples together. But maybe it's because of like a societal change rather than like like how more women are working longer, more things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. And again, with these, you know, like you say, it seems to be more traditional older couples where maybe the woman's not involved, or maybe she's involved at a later date. And I guess another common theme as a result of that is often you'll maybe meet the woman or meet a woman when she's going through, you know, a life event
Yeah,
like, you know, the passing of her partner or a divorce or
yeah,
something like that. So again, that's a very emotional
yeah,
time for them, and also must be extra emotional when you've not already been involved in the
yeah.
conversation. So it must be very overwhelming. How do you deal with, I guess, those kind of clients where it's a lot more emotional and maybe a bit more of a raw moment?
I think money is emotional for a lot of people, whether
Yeah.
they admit it or not. But in these heightened kind of eras of your life, so yeah, divorce or when you've received inheritance from a loved one dying, things like that, it's just all about making sure there's a real level of understanding and control. It's about feeling in control of what's happening, not just that somebody's taking it, running with it, and it's like, okay, well, they're going to deal with it.
Mm.
I'm not going to get involved. It's for me, I want them to understand absolutely everything so they feel in control and they get that
Yeah.
financial freedom.
Hmm.
And it's not just another thing to bring them stress. It's it's getting that back, because
Hmm.
especially in those periods of your life, you've got no control over anything, unfortunately. So if we
Hmm.
can get an element of control on the finances, then it's a win. I think that's
Hmm.
what I try and achieve.
Hmm. And obviously, if that can be done from the outset, then, you know, again, it's improving, you know, the financial confidence and
Yeah,
people feeling part of that conversation,
yeah,
and it not just feeling like a load of jargon. So
yeah. The jargon, we don't need it.
I
I always, and I catch myself using it sometimes, and I'm like, what does that even mean? I have to test myself and put it into just human kind of
yeah.
one-on-one conversation. And it's okay to just kind of go back to the basics and use really simple analogies, because that's what we need. We don't
Hmm.
need the jargon.
Hmm. Was there anything in particular, obviously you being a young female in the industry, was there anything in particular that kind of drew you towards working with more women?
I think, and it was just quite selfish, that I work with men all the time. Excuse me. And I wanted to work with more women. I was jealous of my friends who were in kind of, one of my best friends is in beauty and wellness, and she works with
Yeah.
women all the time and has the best time. And I thought, I want to bear
So those
that.
conversations,
Yeah,
like you want to have, again, you can have some amazing conversations with men. It's not saying that we can't have good chats with them, but
yeah,
it's that you have that relatability,
yeah,
don't you? And
exactly.
especially being in such a male dominated industry, I can imagine it's nice to, you know, speak to some women. And some
Yeah,
of those might be really inspiring women who've had very
yeah,
successful careers, which
yeah.
almost you can learn a bit from as well in turn.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because I started my career from day one, didn't know anything, I kind of understand how it feels to be a woman in this environment, not knowing anything. And I asked a lot of questions that were, you know, typical stupid questions. And I understand that you don't get taught it at school. It's really hard. You can self-teach yourself, you know, on the internet. There's way more nowadays, but it's quite intimidating, and it's a lot to teach yourself. And sometimes you just want to kind of have somebody in front of you and you can just freely ask questions, and those are my favorite conversations.
Mhm.
And I was chatting to one of my friends the other day, and we got onto it. She was saying, what's a hedge fund? And we were kind of like, I was breaking everything down, and women are so interested in it
Yeah.
when it's explained to them in a way.
In simple terms.
Yeah, because it's really interesting. Investing
Yeah.
is an interesting topic, how it works. It's a world that is interesting.
Mhm.
Companies, shares, all of this, like strategy behind it, what people think is going to happen in the future, what has happened in the past. It's got a lot of kind of passion behind it, and women like being involved in the conversations. I just feel like they've never been the door hasn't been opened for a long time to
Mhm.
invite them in.
Mhm.
And I always think it's not, the typical cliche is it's not a capability issue. I know, no, it's not a capability issue. It's a confidence issue.
Mhm.
Whether we know it or not, it's just something that hasn't been on the radar.
Mhm. I think, yeah, definitely confidence. I also think it comes down to like just general knowledge. Like if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't know about something, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So it's things like, that's why I do think it's great having podcasts and again things on social media that
Yeah.
can draw attention to like the power of investing, and also that you don't need to be ultra wealthy to
Yeah, I think that's the
invest,
biggest
and you can
misconception.
build wealth from
Yeah.
early on in your 20s
Yeah.
and then become
Yeah.
ultra wealthy. And like you say, if more women knew about that, they
Yeah.
would have the confidence. And again, I feel quite passionate about it, and I know I'm not an investment manager, but I would love for more people to know. I know a lot of my friends probably also are not aware of,
Yeah.
what can be done. So
Even pensions is a massive thing,
yeah,
and it's kind of the less sexy part of finance. Nobody finds pensions interesting to talk about, but if we don't talk about it, then the pension gap, which is it's 113,000 at the moment, or 112,000, one of them, men retire with that much more than women at the moment, which is huge. And obviously, there's a lot of
yeah,
factors that come into that. But if we're not having that conversation with young women who are building their careers, they don't have to be super ultra wealthy. They can just be women who have a job, who have a pension. We need to have that conversation. We need to say, when your company says, what do you want to do with this kind of allowance? Do you want to put it into your pension, or do you want to buy more holiday? We need people to say, oh no, I want to put it in my pension because I know that's the right thing to do and I need it for my future. And then looking at their pension and saying, what is my pension invested? How's it invested? Is that right? Am I comfortable with that? And understanding that. And that's a quick conversation. It doesn't need to be,
yeah.
really in depth. It's just understanding what you have, because you will have something.
Mm-hmm.
Why not take control of that? Why
Yeah.
not have that conversation?
Again, that's
And you
like a
don't need
really
to be wealthy.
basic, not basic, but it is like a really quick thing people can get to
Yeah,
know about.
yeah.
The amount of people in like, in my 20s who I've met who said, oh, I don't put into my pension, I
know.
just take it as cash.
Yeah, because I want
Because I
to
think people
go on
think,
fancy holidays.
yeah, they
So
think
do I.
pension equals pensioner.
Yeah.
But if you don't start saving early on, then later on, then
Yeah.
it can be a detriment.
Especially with, we're living longer.
Yeah.
Women often live longer than
Yeah.
men. It's something that we do. We take career breaks. We have babies. We stop working for a bit. It's things that we need to have on our radar for our own future, especially if there's going to be a divorce somewhere. You need to have your own thing going on, You need to back that for yourself.
When you're working with women who are going through a big life event, whether it is a divorce or a bereavement or even a business exit,
Yeah.
how do you balance giving that technical support with the emotional support? Because I can imagine it can be quite difficult to blend the two.
I think you can have as many meetings as you need, right? So if it's a meeting and it's purely emotional, and right now we're just going to rant about what's happened, and we're just going to kind of get the feelings out so I can fully understand where you're feeling, then we'll do that. We won't talk about the technical side, but just do that, and we can just really understand where your head's at. And I'm so happy to do that. And then I can take that away and I can deal with the thinking. And then the next one, I can come to them with a nice, succinct plan, rather than me kind of, I don't want to be overwhelming. So in that, I think it's my job to listen in those circumstances, and then take it away, do the work, and then come back to them with something that feels really digestible and say, this is what we should do. I've taken in everything you've said. How do you feel about that? Do you understand it? Is there anything that in this plan that is not kind of digestible to you? And then we go down it when it's kind of, we have that foundation in place.
Do you think you've learned from experience, or is there anyone in particular that you've kind of learnt from during your training, or I guess, maybe when you weren't qualified yet, what you'd sit in with? Is
Yeah.
it been more from experience, or is it almost just kind of from intuition?
I've worked with so many amazing people, and I think you can take away bits from everybody. So I always think the best advice I got like early on in my career is just ask people to shadow them,
Yeah.
and really do just like be a sponge. And you can sit in a meeting and you can think, I wouldn't be doing it like this. I don't agree with how they're running
Hmm.
this meeting, but it's not your meeting. So you kind of take it and you can learn from that and say, I could see the client wasn't loving that. That isn't how I'm going to do it. Or you go into a meeting and you can see it's like watching magic happen, and you can see how they're doing it, and you can write it down. You take little sound bites and you can learn from everybody. But I think learn like that is the biggest thing, just being a sponge in front of as many people as
Yeah.
possible.
Essentially, shadowing then is
Yeah,
how you've, and like you say, some of those have been learnings. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
maybe have
yeah,
seen what someone's done in a meeting and thought, I wouldn't have done that. That
yeah,
wouldn't be my style. But
yeah,
then on the flip side, there will have been somewhere you've taken that, and it's probably something that you now use
yeah,
as an investment
definitely,
manager today.
definitely. And that's all it is just seeing how other people do it and seeing what works for you.
Hmm.
And I still do it now, always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think as well, like you say, I know we obviously live in a world where there's so much you can do online.
Hmm.
Do you do a lot of your meetings in person, or do you get quite a lot online? And if they are online, how do you still build that kind of human connection?
I like in person,
Hmm.
but obviously we're in a world now where we're all global, we're all over the place. But I think even if we start on Teams or Zoom or whatever we're going to use, then it's nice to meet
Yeah.
as early as possible, just to kind of get that relationship, the foundation really there. So yeah, I like in person, and it doesn't have to be in the big fancy office. We can meet at a coffee shop or whatnot, and just kind of obviously when you're talking about real personal finances, then you want to be in an office so you can close the door and you can talk as freely as possible. But when it's just about building that relationship, we can do it in a less intimidating setting,
Hmm.
and that works quite nicely.
Hmm. Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to mention was you do quite a lot. I mean, the way I found you was on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
You've been doing a lot of networking, and I think from experience, from a recruitment perspective, business development and networking can be something very intimidating.
Yeah.
To especially when you're earlier on
Yeah.
in your career to kind of get involved in.
Hmm.
Um, I guess how talk to me about that journey. So, putting yourself out there on LinkedIn, hosting events, networking. How did that all kind of start? Obviously, it's part of your job, but
Yeah.
how was that? I guess you probably made a lot of progress from
I
when you
think
first
it's
started to now.
such a valuable tool that we have. And I think it is really intimidating. And you think all these things like, oh, I don't want people from school to see, and you don't want your family to see. And it feels a bit embarrassing and out your comfort zone. But I think if you're not using the tools available, then you're going to miss out on amazing opportunities. And I've had so many amazing opportunities through building a LinkedIn kind of
Hmm.
presence. You get invited to one event and it can unlock so many
Yeah.
doors. You can have such valuable conversations, and then you'll get another event invitation through it, and then you can go to that, and then you can, and it's very much a snowball
Hmm.
effect. And I started it just through making my business plan,
Yeah.
which was really multifaceted, but it was a massive part of it was about, enhancing my visibility and
Yeah.
getting myself around as many people that I wanted to, and not even in like a really calculated way, but just you can pick up kind of little bits of gold from all over the place. So sometimes I think it's quite easy to be bombarded with things and you think, oh, that's not appropriate for me. But sometimes it is just about going along and seeing. And if it's a wasted evening, then, you know, on to the next.
Hmm.
But there's always opportunities if you kind of keep going.
With the whole, like you say, the LinkedIn part,
Mm.
was that something, with like putting yourself out there, was that something that was taught, or is it a little bit more self-taught,
I
obviously?
was really out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't like it at all, but it was just one of those things that I felt like I knew I had to do it. Um, and I just think, and I say it to everybody, like, why not really? What have you got to
Yeah,
lose?
love that.
But I did feel like I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. But then you do, and you do know. And once you kind of get into the groove of it, I mean, I've got my notepad and I've got so many ideas, and it's not just like coming up with ideas, coming up for the sake of coming up with ideas. It's like genuine things that I think will be effective and people will find interesting.
Obviously, one of the reasons you do it is, it helps you as your personal brand, but
Yeah.
also you've had things come from putting
Yeah,
yourself
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Have
yeah.
you got any examples of like whether it's an event you've been invited to or, tangible things that have come up as a result from?
I mean, I really like working with female entrepreneurs
Yeah.
because they're amazing and fascinating, and they're all different, and they've all had this amazing journey of whether they're really early stage and they don't really know what they're doing and they're looking to build their ecosystem out, or if they're more established and they've been doing it a while, and you can really learn from how they've done things because they've been so brave and they've made so many
Yeah.
decisions. And that's the kind of thing, like, okay, well, you want to be in front of female founders and you want to be in those circles, and then how do you do it? You can reach out to them, but it's not going to work. But if
Yeah.
you it's actually an ecosystem, especially in cities, and I think each
Yeah.
city across the country will have their own little community.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're in it, and it
Yeah.
snowballs. So now I get to meet amazing people, like real household names, household brands, and I can sit and, even if it's just listening to a panel, but you can kind of take away as much as you can. So my kind of progression in that space has been really fun,
Yeah.
and rewarding, and that's probably what I really have enjoyed about LinkedIn. Um, just from getting myself involved in these communities and just
Mm-hmm.
being like, you can offer to be helpful, and
Yeah.
people like that.
Mm-hmm. And you've obviously hosted a number of events, and
Yeah.
that's a huge part of networking. Talk to me about that, because I know from with it being such a male dominated industry, a lot of
Hmm.
networking events can be designed more with men in mind. How have you found, I guess, hosting your own events, and
Yeah.
what sorts of things have you done to, cater it to your network of, like you say, women and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs?
So I think I think that it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm not like who. I mean, it does. I was going to say it doesn't matter who your audience is, but it does. But my example is that I hosted a lot of males in my industry, and there was, I think, 40,
Well,
40 guests, and there was 2 women, and the rest were all men. It was of financial planners that were coming in from external, and we did a cocktail making class. And some of the guys who I was doing it like with, they were like, men don't like cocktails in the same way women do. It's not a thing. It was so
they loved
fun
it.
and they loved it. And that was less so kind of what will men like? Because, maybe they'll go to another golf event or they'll go to another sports event. And it was actually the feedback that I got from that was it was so nice to do something different.
Inclusive. Yeah.
So, yeah. So maybe it isn't about what's the stereotypical thing because everybody else is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's about thinking outside the box. I also just like, for women especially, smaller, kind of more intimate events. So even
Yeah.
if it's just a dinner and you have maximum 12 people around the table, you can really get like candid conversations
Yeah.
flowing, and the relationships, everybody's connecting with each other. It's not just kind of your own personal interests that you're kind of working on, that you're trying to get something out of it. It's about everybody in that room can take away something from someone there, and then that kind of builds a really nice open kind of confident space to talk about money, and that's
Mm-hmm.
always fun.
Mm-hmm. For people who are trying to build out their network, they could be further on in their career than you, they could be earlier on. Have you got any advice? Because again, I can imagine it can be quite intimidating. Also, the fact that a lot of the time you're all trying to tap up the same
Yeah.
people, like you're trying to tap up the same lawyers,
Yeah.
accountants, or maybe the same clients. So, have you got any advice for kind of differentiating yourself?
I think that is a thing, and I have been to networking events, and there's one kind of person that everybody wants to talk to, and
Yeah.
it's like there's like a swarm around them, and I really don't like that, and I never really want to do that. But again, I think the power of LinkedIn there is really useful, because if you can make a connection with them ahead, and then you can have a little bit of a conversation, and you can find something to relate to them on, then that's a really good way to do
Yeah.
it. But also other people might be doing that, so it is
Yeah.
competitive. But then my advice, and I always feel like even now I still feel like I'm so early on in this stage, and I'm very much in that kind of building stage. So I'm always willing to take advice on it as well. But my advice would be think outside the box. And my things that I've been more successful with have been look at the person in the room that people might not be talking to, because they're in that room for a reason.
Yeah.
Whether they're like the gold standard, there's one person there who everybody knows is selling a business, or they're a lawyer with a really great book of private clients and things like that. There might be somebody who's kind of like in the corner and not talking to somebody. Go and talk to them, see how they ended up in that event, and chances are, even if they're not the person for you, they'll know somebody who is. And it's just about building that relationship. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be calculated all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I love about my job, is like just chatting and finding out.
Mm-hmm.
Being a bit
Absolutely.
nosy.
Yeah, it's having conversations.
Hmm.
For people who maybe feel a little bit less confident or more intimidated about
Yeah.
doing business development and networking, do you have any advice for them?
I mean, I've come away from business development or networking events, and I could feel my cortisol levels are high. You just feel like you're constantly going out on a
Overwhelmed.
whim. Yeah, you're having conversations and they're not landing, and it's really, sometimes it can be really horrible. And you
Mm-hmm.
think like, oh, I just felt really out of my comfort zone that whole time. But you just kind of have to think it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't matter, even if you can't land a conversation, and it does. You have an awkward silence, whatnot. On to the next.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not being rude to anybody or anything, nobody's going to come away from that and thinking, I hated her. It might
Mm-hmm.
just be, that was a bit awkward.
Yeah.
But we all have that.
Mm-hmm.
So just
Essentially,
keep
don't put
trying.
too much pressure on
Don't
it.
put too much pressure on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Be
give it a go.
natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And just be really normal. And I've been in conversations and I like seen people kind of do the networking thing, and I can overhear them and I'm thinking, I don't even know that person right now. They're not being themselves. And I think that's something that and maybe it's not the right thing to do. I'm still open to advice, but I like to be myself. So whether that's talking about completely random things, but if a conversation, like I was talking to somebody about reality TV for such a long time the other day at a networking thing, and in theory maybe that wasn't the kind of professional investment manager
Mm-hmm.
thing to do, but it meant that we really built a connection there.
Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the whole human side of like,
Yeah.
it is ultimately building relationships.
Yeah.
That's what my job is
Yeah.
within recruitment, and it's what your job is. And it's like, it doesn't always have to be
Yeah.
technical, whilst that's a very important part of the job.
Yeah.
To build those relationships and make them proper relationships, it can't just be sales and transactional.
And
It
I
has to
think
be
the
you.
whole conversation about we need more women involved in finance conversations, we need the industry to change. We need it to be more accessible and more welcoming to women in so many ways. So if we're all trying to fit the mold of the investment manager, it hasn't worked for women. It's, women aren't investing.
Mm-hmm.
So we need them. We need people to go out there and not be like that.
Mm-hmm.
So women feel like they can be involved in the right way with the right person. So if it just means that I can introduce one woman to investing and, get her off the ground running and feeling confident, then that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Just by being a bit more human. So stop trying to be a human and just be a human.
Mm-hmm. How do you think the industry needs to change? Like you say, something that we've talked about a lot in this episode is regarding the whole getting more women investing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the industry needs to change to, I guess, promote that and, improve that?
I think it is changing, which is really nice to see. I think we're getting more women involved in the conversation, and every firm is doing it. There's special kind of events just for women that it's and that's one thing to do that, to have like a women's event where you introduce women to investing, but it does need to be done in the right way. And I think just change is actually a good thing. And if something's not working, it's okay to scrap it and try again and do something that will work. And I think, I mean, a lot of the feedback I've had is like, it can be quite boring. Going to an event and, hearing somebody talk about pension can be quite boring.
Yeah.
So don't make it boring.
Mm-hmm.
Because it isn't boring. And I know that it sounds like I'm trying to like be a salesman for my career, but I'm not. It's genuinely so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the most interesting conversations about investing. I know it's obviously my passion and it might not be everybody's, but I've had people who have not been interested in it and they come away and they are interested in it. And that's the win. That's the goal, is to get the interest going. That's about just like getting them in the room. It's about getting women feeling passionate, which is easy to do because we're quite we're
hmm
often quite passionate.
hmm I love that you're so passionate and you love your job, you love your
hmm
career. And, you know, one thing that is prominent, and we've touched on it a little bit, is that, like you say, there's just not many females in the industry compared
hmm
to it, given it's so male dominated. What do you think needs to change, or how do you think, how do you think progress can be made to attract and retain more women into the industry, especially given, I wouldn't say you fell into it, but like you
Yeah.
didn't go into it at
Yeah.
18 in
I didn't
mind
know
of,
anybody in the industry.
yeah,
So I
so
didn't really know what I was doing, what I was going into.
exactly.
And I think that probably is it. I think making it more transparent
Yeah.
and making it a more visible career.
hmm
Um, Especially I think when you go to some of these really fancy private schools and you're surrounded by wealth and all that comes in it, then you probably will be in that world, and
Yeah.
you're kind of raised knowing your parents' financial advisor and things like that. But when you're not from that background, it isn't really a
hmm
conversation. So just making it more accessible and less of a like a this is just what rich people have, making it more this is what we all need to do, because inflation will catch up with us, and we can't just leave our money in a savings account for ages getting a worse rate than inflation.
hmm
Like we all need to be investing, whether
hmm
we like it or not.
hmm In terms of, people coming into the industry or maybe earlier on in the career,
hmm
what advice would you give to younger women in the industry?
Oh, so much. This is like, I really like chatting to women in the industry. I think the best piece of advice I got, and it was when I was on my internship, so it's the
Yeah.
very first, and I can still remember it, and it was from a woman, and she told me that people like to talk about themselves, which is like really
Yeah.
basic. But I kind of took that in, and I think that's how I got a job out of it, because just asking people to go for coffee is the most valuable thing that you can do. And pick your moments, do it in the right way. Don't just talk for the sake of talking. Be a listener. And, people like talking about themselves, and you can learn a lot from it and remember things. Somebody tells you, oh, sorry, I was late. I was picking up my son from cricket. Then you can say the next time, oh, how's your son? And you can just like the simple things like that. And then you build a relationship through that. So be on the ball and just chat to people. It's
hmm
the superpower.
I guess essentially show an interest in them as a
Yes.
person
Yeah.
rather than just, them as your
Yeah,
client.
don't be calculated about it. Don't be, I'm having this conversation because I want this. Don't go into anything with expectations. Just have the conversation and see where it goes.
hmm Where, what's next for you? What do you see? Obviously, you're earlier on in your career.
hmm
What does success look like for you?
I think really establishing myself as a person for women to come to help with their
Yeah.
finances. And I do also, I know it's all about, you never want to pigeonhole yourself. And obviously, I talk to men all the time and have male clients and all of that. But I really want to be that person that women can recommend to their friends to say, oh, you need somebody to help with your finances, with your investing. I know a woman who will really help you, and to
hmm
be that person, that is what success looks like to
hmm
me.
hmm Essentially, do you want to just keep on doing what you're doing, or
Yeah.
have you got like plans for how you're gonna, improve your like personal brand and become more known? Do you think it just comes with experience?
Yeah, I think so. Um, I mean, I'm working on the personal brand thing. Is something that's really kind of at the front of my mind all the time, but less about my kind of the vanity in it, more about being visible. And again, it's to kind of reach that overriding goal, is the more visible you are through your personal brand, even though it's such a buzzword, it just means that the more women you can get in front of, and then you can kind of have those conversations, and you can learn from every single one of them. So I mean, I've started an Instagram page, which is a bit, it
Mm.
kind of sounds, I'm not even sure how I feel about that. And I'm posting things on it, and I don't really, it's not my world at all, like social media and doing all of that. But
Yeah.
the reason why I've done it is just to be more visible to women who aren't kind of in, maybe they don't have LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Then you have to be visible in another way. And there's women who have a lot of money, making a lot of money, doing really cool things, but they might not be in that cookie cutter corporate
Yeah.
world.
hmm
And then, so I've done that. So things
hmm
like that. I'm
hmm
working on it.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We're nearly at the end of the podcast. I've loved this conversation. I feel
I feel
like
like we could
we
talk about
could
it for
literally,
hours.
yeah, for hours. We've got a few minutes left. So I wanted to finish off with a closing
hmm
question. If you could give one piece of advice to you when you were 18, when you were just starting out,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Oh, that is a really good question. And I think it's one that I would really, I could say so many things to her, but I would just say, just keep going. and just keep taking every opportunity that comes to you, even if it doesn't feel like the right one.
Hmm.
Just keep trying it, taking everything you can from wherever you can get it, and being a sponge.
Just say yes,
Just say
basically. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Give it a go.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Louisa, thank you so, so much again. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on. I've
for having
absolutely loved
me.
this. And yeah, for anyone who wants to find you, is LinkedIn and Instagram the
Yeah.
best place?
LinkedIn, you've got my email's on there, so send me an email and we can always have a chat, always go for a coffee and
Mhm.
start it. I just always say that there's no right time to start, just start the conversation.
Amazing. Thank
Mm.
you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.